Welcome back. I'm excited to be here. This very unplanned podcast edition. We recorded yesterday. Obviously, that one will come out before this one, but we are back to, the next day to kind of follow up on a conversation that we started because we were talking about soul retrieval and soul retrieval practice. And as I spoke in yesterday's episode, I said I was going to do my own soul retrieval. And last night I did that. And we really felt it was a really important thing to come back and have a conversation with that. Stacy, I'll let you say anything that you want before I launch in. But if you've got anything to add before we get in deep, I'll pass it
I
over.
I just love this experience that just organically, authentically, and when you reached out and you're like, "Oh, I would just love to do a follow-up add-on to," like you said, the one that we recorded yesterday. And we just are really passionate about sharing with our listeners and viewers.
Yeah.
And and it's I feel like we together, individually and then coming together, we're centered with lovingness within our own self, then for each other, but then also sharing with the world. And it's so much for our own healing as well. When we express whatever we feel aligned in expressing.
Yeah.
And I'm just drawn to say just storytelling in the sense of like when it's feels right for self, not because anyone else needs to know the details for any specific reason. It's just when we're called to that. So it's like you're following this so lovingly aligned process and experience. And I'm just so honored to be here with you. And I'll just pass it to you and just be here with you in this audience while we just get to really hear your whatever you feel like sharing. Thanks so much. Lovely.
Thank you, Stacy. Yeah. So, as I had said yesterday, this is not the first time that I've worked with soul retrieval, and it was extremely powerful what happened in my soul retrieval last night, um, and very, very unexpected. I did not expect things to play out the way that they did in the soul retrieval. And we were, I kind of talked a little bit yesterday about how I had been in a repeating pattern situation that I felt like I needed to get that piece of my soul back. That is really what I expected. But I ended up in this soul retrieval. I ended up with 5 pieces of my soul coming back. Um, I didn't even realize that 5 pieces of my soul were gone. Um, and that doesn't mean like I just want to speak out like there could be more. This is not a one and done kind of process. This is just one of those healing processes that we should do again and again, not just one time and done, because it is likely that the things that happened in this soul retrieval for me, 4 of the 5 were a huge shock that it was something that I needed to get back. I'm not going to share every one of those pieces just because in thinking about the other people that they involve. But I will say, the first, as I went in on my path with Esmeralda, my spirit guide, I've talked about her before, but as I went on my path and walked into this different level of consciousness. This was a deep meditation. And as I walked into this different level and it opened up to this beautiful field full of lavender and roses and just really beautiful, very calming space. Um, the first piece of my soul that I encountered was given to me by the person who sexually abused me as a child. And that person is passed. Again, I'm not going to share a lot of details about that person themselves, but they handed it back to me and they said to me how sorry they were that they had taken it and that it was past time that I take it back.
Yes.
Um, and as Stacy knows, maybe some people listening know a little bit about that story of mine. Because I think we do have some friends and family listening, so there could be some people who have more insight with this. I have spent many, many years healing this, doing EMDR, doing grief recovery method, doing several different therapeutic ways. I even Reiki, using Reiki to move this energy out of my body. And really, really thought that this piece was kind of closed for me.
Mm,
Um, and as this happened, um, probably 10 years ago, I would not have been able to interact or accept anything.
mm,
So for me, this is like that final piece of healing, that final, you're right, I'm taking me back,
mm,
because there's, you can't hurt me anymore. And I deserve to be whole.
mm,
It's kind of like what it felt like for me. Um, but it was very shocking. It was shocking that in particular was the very first thing, first piece that I got back.
mm,
The next piece was much more beautiful in that every dog that I have lost in my life, and there has been a lot, they were all together. And my heart dog, who we all have that one heart dog for sure, her name was Boomer. She was kind of at the head of the pack, and they symbolically gave me a piece of my soul back and
mm,
said, we're all just waiting for you. You can still love as much as you loved us. Um, and it was beautiful. It was beautiful to see them, to interact with them, and to have them say, we want you, your soul to be whole. We're going to be here. We're just waiting on you.
mm,
So it was really very beautiful.
mm,
And as I've shared on this podcast before, I lost my best friend several years ago, who passed away. And although she has come into my circle many times, I have interacted with her. Um, she also gave me a piece back and just really encouraged me that, just because we have losses doesn't mean we can't love, doesn't mean that we can't give ourselves as much as we gave to that person who, I mean, this was someone who was my sister, really was not just a friend. And, really giving permission that it's all a part of the journey, right? It's all a part of what we're doing. And then I had Esmeralda, who gave me back two pieces of my soul symbolically, from both a past love loss and from the situation which I was talking about yesterday that had been a repetitive pattern. So these five pieces, the work doesn't stop here. And I think that's important for me to say. It's not like I take these five pieces back and all of a sudden it's all good, it's whole, it's all patched up, because that's not how it works, right? Like I accept these pieces of my soul back, but I have to reintegrate them
mm,
into my system,
mm,
into my soul, and allow the things that were hurtful about that, the reasons why my soul, pieces of my soul hid, I
mhm,
have to reintegrate that into my soul so that those things that we tell ourselves, or that I'll just say, for example, from being sexually abused as a child, there, that lack of trust in other people, that thought that maybe I'm dirty,
mhm,
all these things that have been, and not so much in the last, I would say, 5 years, right? Because I've done a ton of work,
mhm,
but there still are those things that are happening under the surface
mhm,
that stop our confidence, that stop pieces of us, that make us question. And all of those five pieces together accumulate into those negative voices, those doubts about self, and those pieces of, when I say we're never going to love ourselves 100% all the time, 24 hours a day, but getting those five pieces back and reintegrating them is going to allow some of that negative self-talk that were created out of some of these losses, some of these traumas to be lessened, because I will reintegrate those pieces of my soul
Mhm.
that had fragmented.
Mhm.
Um, I really wanted to share this. Again, this was not like any other soul retrieval I've done. This was very intense, but I also feel like I was so open and ready and jumping in because I've been on such a journey of this self-healing, of this self-love, of all these things that I kind of bombarded myself to get five pieces all at the same time,
Yeah.
like um but it also speaks to me, for me, about my journey and about how much my soul wants me to heal and to be able to teach and to be able to speak to all the things, all the practices that are done, both, in traditional therapy methods, but also in the spiritual, with Reiki, with nutrition.
Mhm.
Seriously, like, we feed our bodies, and I am not lecturing anybody. I am not the best eater in the world. Let me just be clear. If I needed to concentrate fully on one thing, I would say it is about food as medicine for me. And because we have to realize that even parts of our soul we feed with food and nutrition, right? So there's so many things that integrate into getting to a place where we're able to receive so much. I'm sure things came up for you, Stacy, and I'm gonna pass it over to you because I don't want to go on and on about this, but I did want to come back and share how impactful this was for me last night. And this is going to be a journey. Like, likely the next episode, we might talk a little bit, maybe a little bit more about um the journey after, right? Because
Mhm.
I'm still within that 24-hour period of doing this and still processing it. And that processing period and that journaling period is very, very important.
Yes. So beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And what was coming in for me was particularly with, and this is for anyone who loves animals, any kind of animal, but for me, I had a dog that was very much my protector. And it's so beautiful when with a similar type of process. And I feel like sessions I've had when I was a bit younger, still in my adulthood, coming to be aware when the essence and the soul of the dog in this example comes forward. And for me, it was a precious German Shepherd I grew up with, and she helped me feel not alone and safe and all those things. But she was like protecting my heart. And that process of opening up to the lovingness that we are, so we can allow that to emit and to be received. And so, like you said, journey, and it's a process. And the awarenesses that come through in a session like that, anything where we get these new insights of like, whoa, didn't know that was there. And, especially when it's soul and spirit and all of these things, and then we're in this physical body. So it's like, okay, like to just be gentle with ourselves and like taking care of the physical body and emotions. And if we need to journal and we need like all of those things, because as we've said before, there's nothing wrong with any of us. But do we have hurt and are we carrying some woundedness? Yes. And I just love how the nuances and examples and things just keep coming in that we're sharing, like in the example of a beloved pet.
Mhm.
I mean, there's so much more that we're not aware of that when in right timing and whatnot, when it's meant to, and whatever purpose it has, it's going to. And, it's like, I always knew just this. I mean, I love dogs in general, but it's different, each experience with a different pet. And not to make it just all about the pets, but it's so cool when you get that awareness of like, that's why there was just that bond that didn't, not that it didn't make sense, it does, but like you knew you had that relation, that connection with your pet. And it's all here for us and with us and around us.
Mhm.
And when we're ready, we'll experience it, feel it, sense it, whatever. And then, like you said, we'll do more with this later on whether it's this particular piece as we maybe follow a little bit with your experience, but anything that else comes up about this is our journey where we get to experience it and learning more and more, loving ourselves through it, allowing what wants to come in when safe, that we can say no. That's the other thing
Yes,
we can name, right? We can say no when we're not ready to spirit, to anything. And so it's just like not all parts are ready for everything. And that's
absolutely.
okay. There's no shoulds, there's no rush. And so, so beautiful. I'll get back to you if you want to say anything more before we close.
I really want to add on to what you're saying about when we're ready, right? If I use myself in this example, you know, I've talked about before, I have been connected to spirit guides, to angels since I was 4 years old. I am 48 years old now. So 44 years later, from my very first awareness of there being something more, right? Um, and this is when I was ready for this piece of the journey. Now, that doesn't mean, guys, that it's going to take 44 years for you to be ready for that. That's not what I mean. Everyone is on their own journey. But for me, again, this is not the first time I've done this, but this is the first time that these things showed up and in such a powerful way. And so there is no time or reason or, well, everything is perfect timing.
Yeah.
There is a time and a reason,
Yeah.
but for us, the living this human experience, like there's not a time clock. That's what I mean. Like there's not a time clock. It doesn't have to happen tomorrow. It doesn't have to happen 5 years from now. It is when your soul is open and ready is when you're going to receive it. And I don't care how long you've been doing it. Again, 44 years for me. And I was just ready for this now.
Mhm.
And maybe I'm a slow learner. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But really, it speaks to that until our soul is ready to heal those pieces, right? Or whatnot, to face those things, um, it it's not gonna align. So that doesn't mean that you don't try to do a soul retrieval. I'm just saying the reason why we keep doing it over and over again is
Right.
because there are facets of it that our
Right.
soul is not ready for at the giving time.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
um, lifelong practice for me, and I'm sure there's still pieces out there. I'm sure there are that
Mhm.
I don't have awareness of at this time. But this one was very impactful for me. And, um, I think that as Stacy knows, I had been saying I felt like I had lost a piece of myself, a piece of my soul over the last year. And likely, just that recognition of where I was and what was happening and the damage that it had done really just kind of opened the floodgates for me. So I just wanted to plug that. I wanted to say that so that no one feels like they're behind, because again, 44 years for me to get to this spot. So you're not behind. It's never too late. It's whenever your journey starts, it starts,
Right.
and it looks like exactly what your soul has written for you.
Mhm, mhm. Beautiful. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. That was lovely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much. Bye.